It's the summer of safe hands.
I'm also imagining what a Rudiger-produced Bad Boys looks like.
I love it.
Well, hello everyone, welcome to a special episode of the SportsPro podcast. Now, I just want to cast your mind back to 20 years ago. Euro 2004 was upon us. Wayne Rooney was an unknown quantity on the international stage. James Beattie had been robbed of a place in the England squad, and I was left wondering how Sven had the nerve to put Paul Scholes out on the left. But fast forward 20 years, and I'm sat in a room with three blokes asking who'll get more engagement on Instagram, Yannick Vestergaard or Jan Bednarek. But here we are. My name's Ed Dixon. I'm the deputy editor here at SportsPro, and on this week's episode, we're going to be picking our most marketable level at Euro 2024. To help do that, I'm joined by SportsPro's technology editor, Steve McCaskill.
Hi, Ed. That was surprisingly loud. Apologies.
Our features editor, Sam Carp.
Hi, Ed.
And our off-platform editor, Tom Bassam.
Hello, Ed.
Now, gents, the rules are pretty simple. We've agreed on a 4-3-3 formation. We've dispensed with the traditional 4-4-2. We've ignored my idea for a 5-4-1 with a false 9, but never mind. That's what we're doing. So we're doing with a 4-3-3, and we're going to start with the manager. I think it's probably worth, before we start though, because marketability, I guess, is kind of quite a subjective metric. So Sam, if I come to you first, before we sort of dive in to our 11, when you were sort of totting up your list, what were the kind of key criteria that you sort of thought that influenced your decision?
Whether they're a Palace player or not was one of them. But so SportsPro, for people who don't know, has actually been producing a list of the world's 50 most marketable athletes for about 14 years now. So we like to think we have a little bit of credibility in the space, and that was long before the four of us sat on this stage joined the company. And from what I've been told, it used to be just a few guys sat in a pub having a few pints and just debating over who was 45th and who was 46th. Whereas we now do have a data partner called North Star who helps generate that list for us with some methodology. But I think today we're going to be looking back to some of those kind of traditional measures of marketability like age, home market, charisma, but also factoring in some new things like, social media activity, some of the causes they get behind, and then we'll probably also lean on the data when it fits our agenda.
Sounds good. Yeah, so we will start with the manager, and then I think we're going to work, goalkeeper, and then onwards. So let's have it, guys. Who is the most marketable manager at the Euros? Steve?
Oh, I don't have to pronounce his name. I really should have researched this, but Michał Probierz from Poland, I think, is a good shout. There's not many people that could pull off a butterscotch suit and checkered waistcoat, and he actually has his own menswear range in Poland. So there's already someone that's quite convinced of his marketability at least in his homeland.
Yeah, I'd definitely back that up. I think he was the one I picked out. I don't think anyone had heard of him before maybe 3 days ago, but now you can't move on my Instagram for seeing three-piece suits collections. It's probably the best effort in that department since, Russia 2018.
Yeah, Gareth's kind of had his time, hasn't he, with the waistcoat. Does feel like a bit of recency bias in this though, but because I can't think of anyone.
There's going to be a lot of that.
Yeah, because I can't think of anyone better. I'm happy to go with that.
Not interested in Nagelsmann then with his skateboarding antics and tailored suits.
He would be good at selling, like paddle boards and stuff. Like I feel like you could really get him. Yeah, you could put him in some weird places. Like there was that video of him like zipping around the Bayern training ground on like a electric skateboard. I think like today, probably a little bit too cringe for Gen Z, but yeah, maybe. Does he look good in a three-piece suit though?
I feel like there's going to be plenty of Germans in R11, so maybe we'll go with a Polish manager for this.
Yeah, that was remarkably straightforward. I don't know if it's going to be like that for the rest of it. Okay, so we'll lock him in, and the name of the manager is again, Steve?
Tom, what was his name? I've forgotten.
Michał Probierz.
There we go. He's in. Right, so let's go with the goalkeepers. I think there might be some obvious names, maybe some less obvious. I mean, one that sprung out to me was Donnarumma, who's I believe is the most followed Italian player on Instagram. Not that that's the only metric of marketability, but it's certainly a contributor. But you may have other ideas from what I've gathered.
I'm going to make the case for a young man who's a fabulous goalkeeper. He plays for a highly regarded football club called Brighton & Hove Albion. He's very young. He's only been promoted up into the the number one slot for the Dutch team for this tournament, and that is Bruggen. Now, like, he's got a lot. I feel like Brighton's probably not going to be his final destination. I've come to accept that as a Brighton fan, that we're maybe a bit of a stepping stone club, but he's got big things ahead of him. He plays for a big national team, a lot of interest around him. He's going to be there for a long time. But let's just face it, like, Donnarumma, not that likeable. Left one of the biggest clubs in Italy to go and play for PSG. Really? I'm not sure that really sings to me in the same way as an up and coming seagull.
Is he starting?
Yeah.
Is he? Fair. I haven't been watching enough of the Euros then. But in the spirit of trying to have as few Brighton players in our team as possible,
oh God, we've got one over here, haven't we? Jesus.
I think Neuer is probably quite an obvious one, but I feel like there's better stories in the German national team that brands can latch onto this year. I think if you're a goalkeeper at a major tournament, there's nothing more marketable than saving penalties. And
that's a good point.
Who was proved to be an expert at that recently is Jan Sommer.
Oh, it's a good shout.
And I don't know, he's a well put together guy. He's very slick. And in my research for this, I found that he actually has a partnerships page on his own website. And if that's not marketable, then I don't know what is.
Sounds quite optimistic.
He's a premium man for premium brands. So if you think about Hublot, for example, long-running Swiss brand, long association with football tournaments, there's an opportunity there maybe. But it's the penalty-saving thing for me. I'm gonna vouch for Sommer. It's the Sommer of safe hands.
It's the summer of Sam's catchphrases so far. That was excellent. Yeah, I'm very sold on Jan as a quasi Swiss. Steve, do you back this up? See him selling watches and finance stuff.
As a non-documented naturalised Swiss, it's really hard for me to argue against Jan Sommer, who, despite England reaching the final of the last Euros, that game against France is probably the highlight of the whole tournament for me. But I'm probably going to argue for Neuer. And yes, there are going to be a lot of Germans, or at least a lot of Germans in consideration for this, but there is a fabulous tradition in Germany of one football figure endorsing virtually every product known to man on German television. It was Oliver Kahn. It was Jurgen Klopp, and Manuel Neuer appears to be the next one in that tradition. And there's a lot of big German brands that tend to be global partners as well, Adidas, Audi. So that's why I'd go for him. But I'm perfectly happy to have Jan Sommer, Swiss legend, in there.
Okay, so having come to a consensus with the manager, we've now got 4 different goalkeepers. I think, Steve, you slightly swung it in Jan Sommer's favour. So
I didn't want to get chance to. Yeah, well, that version to the boat. I'm saying Sommer.
Cool.
Obviously, I'm saying Sommer.
Cool. Can we call our team Boys of Sommer then?
Yes.
Yeah, nice. Okay, so goalkeepers locked in. Let's move to the back 4 then. We'll start with fullback. So I think we may need to be a bit fluid though. We might see a centre back at right back if need be. It sort of depends what we're going. I think an obvious choice. You, Tom, in the taxi on the way here, said there was a pretty obvious choice, and he's got a double-barrelled surname. So,
yeah. I mean, unlike Gareth, I think he's a great right back. So, Trent's my right back. Like recently, like he was the face of the launch of the relaunch of the Adidas Predators, and really, like, if you're thinking about what's selling in football, selling Adidas Predators is it. You're talking about the lineage of David Beckham right there. So, Trent for me. Lock him in right now. Easy pick at right back.
I think it's difficult to argue against that. We should probably let's put him in. We've got, and let's continue with the back 4. I mean, I could potentially throw one out. I mean, I know he plays in midfield, but he plays left back for us. Not Zinchenko, possibly.
It's really tough to argue against Zinchenko's now. Like, you could, but you'd just be a bit of a bad human.
He is playing
hasn't stopped
at the moment, isn't he? I mean, if you're gonna, I feel like there's a dearth of left backs at this tournament. Probably just looking through an England lens, but I think with Zinchenko, I think quite a lot of the Ukraine players have spoken about wanting to use this tournament to basically remind people of what's going on back home. And I know they obviously didn't have the best start to the tournament yesterday, and lots of them have spoken at various points about, you know, the impact of what's happening on in their country, on their careers. But I feel like Zinchenko has kind of perhaps been the most visible, possibly because of the team that he plays for, the league that he plays in. And if you're a brand, there's probably quite a lot of powerful storytelling you can do by partnering with him. I suppose one challenge would be that brands have been famously politically averse, so it would require quite a lot of boldness for that to happen. But I feel like that's potentially a reason why you could have him in at left back in a most marketable 11. But I'm open.
Do you think there's an argument as well that actually that's kind of that averseness to risk? I really should think of a better phrase than that. But it's kind of a little bit old school. I think like now brands really want to be bold, go after the sort of tackle the trickier topics, be shown to be leaders in that space. And actually Zinchenko would be a perfect pick for that, like someone that is a great spokesman. Obviously this is a sort of English bias, but speaks English. Like that's a big thing when you come to think about marketing. Like how many different different areas can you reach? And yeah, he's been a face for the national team, been a face of like that sort of Ukraine soft power in football. I think it's amongst the dearth of left backs, there's Zinchenko is actually a pretty good name to go with, I think.
Yeah, I think I'd agree for two reasons. The first one is that you said you'd have to be a bad person to argue against it, and the second is I don't really have an alternative to propose. So yeah.
Good to know we all did our research for this. But
Yeah, that's what I meant.
with lots in our fullbacks, I think further forward in the pitch is where it's going to get more exciting anyway. So the sooner we can go through the defence, the better.
Well, you say that, but I've spent minutes thinking of who my centre back should be. So, there we go. I think obviously, just to avoid me putting suggestions, you trying to counteract, sort of try and maybe play devil's advocate to them. Steve, if I come to you, were there some obvious names that you wanted in the centre of defence?
Yeah, well, got a couple. Like there's Pepe, who who never goes down unless he's really injured. So people like him for that. But he's got more than 18 million followers on Instagram, and there is an absolutely sensational video of him promoting Umbro boots on Valentine's Day to famous love songs. And I'd Google that if I could. But I'm going for Joshua Kimmich. He's a German mainstay, Bayern Munich mainstay, more than 80 international caps, two Champions League titles. He's got partnerships with with Nike. He was the face of Gillette in Germany, so he's the best a man can get. He was the face of Helmer's Mayonnaise, the official barbecue partner of Euro 2024, and we missed you, Jack. So he could say he's the Jack Grealish of Germany, but the reason I'm going for him is that if you look at the German TV ratings every year, it's basically sport, and then a program called Tatort, which I've been informed by my German friend is part of popular culture in German-speaking Europe. It's basically a detective procedural. It's registered in 1970, and he made a cameo in it last year. So really breaking through to the German mainstream in the best possible German way.
So is he replacing Trent in the NR?
No, he's renowned German centre-back Joshua Kimmich.
He can play across. He's fine.
I'm happy to squeeze him in at right back instead of Trent.
I mean, I was looking at 3-4-3 in general, but so
it's hard to argue against that.
These
German
are set in
detective show.
stone. We can't backtrack. Then we lose whatever credibility we had left.
Let's just go full Garth Crooks. Whoever has the biggest social media following is in the team.
Or scored a goal.
Well, no, we can squeeze out Trent. I'm here for Kimmich. So what? Zinchenko left back, Kimmich right back, then Pepe in the middle with Sam.
I'm going to vouch for the Crystal Palace centre-back you're not expecting me to vouch for.
How do we cut Sam's mic off, actually?
I think Joachim Andersen should be considered. Recently described by GQ as one of football's most fashion-forward players. Worth considering. Also wears a headband, which is, as we all know, highly marketable. But I think outside of him, Antonio Rudiger is a really interesting one. Now that there's no Chiellini at the tournament, I think that Rudiger feels like the most memeable defender. Obviously, everyone remembers Chiellini pinching back Saka in the final of the last tournament. That went viral. I think if there's going to be any kind of viral moment at this tournament, then Rudiger is potentially going to be involved. His brand portfolio isn't that broad either. He has a deal with Under Armour. I noticed he also recently did a collab with Will Smith and Martin Lawrence to promote the new Bad Boys film, and he is the bad boy of this tournament. So I think if we're considering another centre back, then Rudiger should be
divisive yet marketable. Shows you how to be liked by everyone, I guess.
I'm also imagining what a Rudiger produced Bad Boys looks like.
Might find out soon.
Are we not overlooking maybe the most marketable centre-back in the whole tournament?
Jan Bednarek. He goes to my local Tesco, actually. He loves the world foods aisle.
To you, it seems. But no, Virgil van Dijk, surely. I mean, he's literally the face of the Dutch team, the captain, the leader. Big Nike contract. He's always all over Liverpool's branding. Leads on all of those kind of Nivea campaigns, all of that kind of stuff. Good looking guy. Also got a ponytail. Like Ed, you've got to respect a man with a ponytail.
That's what I'm going for.
Yeah, that's more marketable than a headband. Joachim Andersen, I'd never even heard of him.
I think I personally find it difficult to drop Trent Alexander-Arnold for Kimmich. I would potentially be privy to put a sort of Kimmich in a floating kind of sweeper role.
Trent's never been in Doctors. Like, there's no argument there as far as I'm concerned.
Why don't we leave Trent out and then we'll reconsider him in midfield?
Okay, so we're thinking Kimmich. So Zinchenko on the left, Kimmich on the right, Van Dijk in the middle, alongside Rudiger.
Steve looks hurt.
Not for the first time I'm praying for Pepe.
Hang on, but you're about to go and pass around my Scott McTominay should be in there, so I'm trying to...
You're reading my notes.
I think Rudiger has more going for him than Pepe in this tournament in particular. Representing the home nation. He's also younger. He's more fun. He's done a Bad Boys collab. Come on.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we'll go with that then. Subject to change potentially, but yeah, we'll go with that for now. Let's move on to midfield. Plethora of names we could go for here. Steve, I know you've been chomping at the bit, so this is the McTominay hour.
Good. Firstly, the McTominay hour. Secondly, are we leading the McTominay?
It sounds like it.
What I'll say is, Scott McTominay plays for, the most famous club in the world, will soon be back. And I'm just saying that when Konami needed someone to appear alongside the cover of Pro Evolution Soccer with Lionel Messi, they picked Scott McTominay. There's a whole lot of other brands that, could be attracted to him. I'm surprised he's not doing Iron Brew if he hasn't already. He's just, I think he's, and if source was a marketing metric, he'd be off the scale. So I'm going for Scott McTominay.
So not quite damning to be on the cover of Konami. I feel like, I don't know, you just reduce from sort of like there's the top tier and then there's that.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know, being Pepsi when Coca-Cola are calling.
I mean, Pepsi also are one of the best guerrilla marketers of any tournament, but they also do have Jack Grealish. We miss you, Jack. But I mean, Ronaldo's on the cover of PES, Messi.
Exactly, yeah.
PES 6 Adriano is the best player in human history. Thierry Henry.
I think McTominay is not even the most marketable player in Scotland's midfield. I think, essentially, I reckon John McGinn's in with a better shout.
What's John McGinn selling? Like padded underwear?
I reckon he's ripe for a kind of, Paddy Power short-term deal. He's quite fun. He's playful. He also doesn't have a lot of Scottish players historically have kind of been held back by the fact that
they're from Scotland,
that they've played for either Celtic or Rangers, was obviously quite divisive in Scotland. So whereas McGinn doesn't kind of have that. Obviously, if you're a Hearts fan, maybe you're not going to be the biggest fan, but he doesn't take himself too seriously. He's got that trademark celebration, potentially ripe for a deal with Specsavers, another playful brand. I don't know. I just think McGinn is more interesting than McTominay.
I was going to thought you were going to say Stuart Armstrong. He's got lovely hair.
I can't believe we spent 5 minutes talking about the Scotland midfield. Let's move on to some real players, please.
Who are you putting in our midfield then, Tom?
I feel like I'm just the one who's shouting all the obvious ones at the moment. So I'm going to continue that theme and go with the man who this week has been selling skims, and that is Jude Bellingham. It's the focal point of the team. He's arguably the best player in the tournament, and frankly, he's only got the only way is up for Jude. It's just. We're talking about Scott McTominay. We're talking about Jude Bellingham. Let's have a real conversation, please, fellas.
We're providing context, I think.
Okay.
I think it's difficult to argue against Bellingham, isn't it, gents? So is it worth mentioning not just how marketable he is now, but sort of the potential for him for this to kind of endure for potentially the next decade?
I mean, if you're looking at that Adidas advert they had this week, the other one, the the Adidas advert with players from all different countries, which was voiced over by David Beckham. It's definitely clear they're positioning him as the next big face of that brand. He's got his own logo. He's just at the start of his career as well. The sky really is the limit.
He's working with Kim Kardashian, lads.
Pardon?
He's working with Kim Kardashian.
I was going to say, if you don't believe us, believe Kim. So that's another thing you can do. But I think he's going to be someone that we're going to potentially talk about in the same breath as though as David Beckham in the future. He's definitely got it.
The most marketable England player since Jack Grealish, probably.
We miss you, Jack.
We miss you, Jack, every day.
I think he's missing the fee he's got for that Hellman's advert, though. I don't think it was a pay or play or anything. I think it's probably worth mentioning as well. There are multiple names in midfield. You're kind of spoiled for choice. I mean, you've got your De Bruyne, Modric. These are guys that have been at the top of their game for a decade, if not more so. One thing about marketability as well is potential and sort of ROIs. Value. You're investing in a long-term partner. So in that sense, I know, Tom, you're signing with quite a young Spanish talent who you believe offers more marketability than perhaps someone like a Modric or a De Bruyne. Could you tell us who that is?
Or a McGinn.
Or a McGinn.
For a McGinn, indeed. Interestingly, so I feel like one element of Pedri, who is the name I'm picking for this, I could have gone with the other one, who's basically the same. As my option, but Pedri he's got some interesting stuff that he's doing, not just in the sort of football space. He's kind of placing sustainability, which is something that we've talked about, something that we've seen Hector Bellerin really lean into when it comes to this kind of stuff. Another one that could have been on this list had he, been good at football. But yeah, Pedri's like going to be central to the Spanish team for the next 10, 15 years. He's only 21 years old. He's already the starter. He's been to 2 tournaments. Again, another one signed up with Adidas. They seem to have quite a lot in this 11. I think to break through and to be sort of to take your profile to the next level, you do need to be doing more outside of just being a footballer these days to break through. And Pedri, with this sort of backing in, like this background in sustainability, and I've forgotten the charity is that he works for, but if anyone wants to look it up, they can. He's kind of got that. And I do think that in the next 10 to 15 years, the people that really make cause and purpose part of what they do are going to be the athletes that are really like the ones that we consider as leaders. Even if he falls away as a footballer, you're going to be the guy that, as Hector Bellerin's quite a good example of this, has shown that like even if you fall away in terms of like your athletic profile, you're still there when it comes to kind of you're part of the broader conversation.
I think that's an interesting point where sort of it would be easy to assume marketability means you're sort of generally quite liked by everyone, whereas actually being able to sort of cultivate a dedicated audience, where almost like the passion comes from maybe, it's almost quality over quantity in a sense, where if you've got a more engaged audience, that can constitute to more marketability than maybe sort of everyone thinking, yeah, they're all right, kind of. So that's to your point about why purpose-driven athletes, and again, without wanting to jump the gun with someone like an Mbappe, we saw them speak out the other day, didn't we, about voting. They're clearly making a stance on what they believe is right and wrong, and that will prove divisive, but at the same time, it can lead to more marketability. Sorry, Steve, I thought you were about to jump in there.
I was going to provide a counterpoint to that, and that I think there is a case for a safe pair of hands in some cases where the brands are looking for someone that can do things without minimal fuss, or just through competence on the pitch, just being a really good ambassador off it. And that's where I probably would go for Kevin De Bruyne, who was 60th in our 50mm last year. He's got deals with Nike, EA Sports, McDonald's. These are huge consumer brands. They'll have ambassadors in each of the big countries. I think that's a really solid portfolio, and shows the value of having a tried and trusted person that will help your brand in a particular market.
He's also got really nice hair now as well.
He does have nice hair. It's very true. De Bruyne is going to be an interesting one, because I mean, like, it's kind of, if he leaves Man City, which is one of the things that's been talked about this summer, and goes and plays in Saudi Arabia, he's already talked about the fact that the money would be quite nice. There's a case that makes that decade, hasn't it? Well, I mean, there's a case that makes him less marketable, because people would see him as someone that's gone to Saudi Arabia and taken the money. But he also then becomes a face for a whole Middle Eastern project. And whilst you can discuss the merits of said Middle Eastern project, that is one of the reasons why they're all going there, is that they are going to be marketing tools for not just that football league, but for that country too. So I mean, yeah, you could like kind of flipping it around a bit. De Bruyne's, yeah, it's not a bad inclusion. It's not bad. It's not something we should like just dismiss because he's old.
Yeah, I want to save plenty of time for the forwards. Sam, I'm sort of braced for a sort of an Adam Morton sort of beating the drum for that. But what are your thoughts for the midfield?
He'll be the most marketable in 2028. That's fine. We can wait. But while we're talking about players with hair, is there a place for Griezmann in the 11? Is he the guy who's going to kind of help us reach Gen Z, for example? He could slot into that midfield. He's obviously kind of dropped deeper for France as time has gone on to accommodate some of those exciting attacking players that they have. But he does kind of have a very big gaming presence. He's whipped out Fortnite celebrations, or been known to. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe Griezmann is the man to help us reach that Gen Z audience.
He feels a bit 2018 to me.
Yeah, my concern would also be that his past antics are kind of, he's potentially alienated some audiences, but he has also shown himself to be conscious of human rights. He sort of cancelled a deal with Huawei back in 2020 because of some of the alleged human rights abuses in China. So I don't know. I think it's an interesting one to consider alongside the names that we already mentioned.
Can we shoehorn Jamal Musiala in, or is he going up front? Is he sort of,
penciled in for later? But
we will come back to that then.
I've already named our front three.
No, I haven't. I'm scrolling for that. We got a big Hungarian we're considering as well. We don't want to jump the gun there. Steve, as our resident Manchester United apologist, is there a strong case for Bruno Fernandes?
Bruno Fernandes. I don't know if I would make the case for Bruno Fernandes just because he is a little bit more divisive, I think it's fair to say, from even if I can cross that great Brighton Palace divide with an opinion.
Because he falls over a lot.
He's a great footballer. I also don't know if it's, if we talk about marketability, we talk about presence in each country. In Portugal, I think he is perhaps dwarfed by other players in that squad. And I don't know if he is quite, the other players you mentioned tend to be the beginning part of their careers, and there's potential there, but Fernandes, I'm not sure. He's sort of late 20s now, so I might shock you, but McTominay is the one I'm going for.
Okay, so we can dispense with Fernandes and Scott. Sorry,
you making the ruling, Ed? Is this final?
Well, I sort of think I might have you backing on this for a change. So
someone has to as well. You're in a different chair, so it's fine.
Well, I mean, there's space for Stuart Armstrong, but never mind. We've got four at the moment, four solid ones at the moment. We've got Bellingham, we've got Pedri, we've got De Bruyne, and we've got Griezmann. Four must become three, unless there are any others people want to vouch for. But if not, let's decide who we can drop.
I would advocate against Griezmann. I just feel like he's a little bit 2018 World Cup. That's when he was doing, his Drake dances and all of that kind of stuff. I feel like he's maybe just aged out of it a little bit. Whereas De Bruyne,
they're about the same age, aren't they?
He's got years of selling neon to everyone. So I think that's that'd be my case anyway.
Yeah, I'd say De Bruyne is also part of my Vision 2030.
In the interest of moving on, I'm happy to let go of Griezmann.
Okay, that's the midfield then. We've got Bellingham, Pedri and De Bruyne. Now, this may... Well, I've saved approx 10 to 15 minutes for the front three, plus honourable mentions. There are some obvious names. I know he's got a busted nose, but, he could be the most marketable player.
It's marketable.
There we go.
That was a Tom gag on right here.
Yeah, it was. Like any good writer, I steal.
I reckon we need to address the elephant in the room first, though. The Cristiano Ronaldo sized elephant in the room. I actually had completely forgotten that he still played football until I saw the Portugal squad. And interestingly, there were actually 4 attacking players who were at this Euros who ranked off him in our 50 most marketable list last year. Kind of keen to turn it over to the audience, actually, if people want to shout out some names who they think might have been above Ronaldo, the most marketable list footballers. Hey,
come on. Just shout names.
A couple.
We'll be happy.
what he was.
Yeah, he's managed to name one who wasn't is quite remarkable. Well done, the Villa fan.
But no, that's fine. So obviously the one that you mentioned there, the most maskable, was above him. We can come on to the others in a bit. But yeah, is there room for Ronaldo? Because while obviously some of the stuff that Tom was just saying about De Bruyne probably applies to Ronaldo in that he's not quite as visible now. But even though he's probably not quite as significant a part of that Portugal team, I feel like a lot of the conversation going into the tournament has still been about him. He has 613 million Instagram followers, I believe, which is difficult to argue with. You know, are we jeopardizing the chemistry in the team to weasel in Cristiano Ronaldo?
We have to let him do the social posts, is what you're saying. We have to give it to him.
Maybe be the manager.
Yeah, he did that well, didn't he, in Euro 2016? So the case against Ronaldo, and I think if you were to, I think this is something that we covered actually on SportsPro, was that he does such a sheer volume of deals, including things like Shopee. Does anyone remember Shopee? No? Oh, it's a great advert.
Probably
Look it up.
explains
It's
a lot,
really,
yeah.
really, really good. It's an Indian e-commerce platform, and it's Ronaldo doing a little dance in a little orange kit. Fabulous stuff. Yeah, there's stuff like that really brings down the brand of Ronaldo, and Ronaldo himself probably brings down the brand of Ronaldo.
He doesn't scream exclusivity, does he?
No, you're not like, you're going to be coming up against a lot of things that he's promoting. It's very much like quantity over quality when it comes to Ronaldo.
I mean, you might be surprised to hear a Manchester United fan warn against shoehorning Ronaldo into perhaps a settled team. I think we might be underestimating his global appeal and his appeal outside of Europe. I think that's what appeals to a lot of brands. But Tom, I think you're absolutely right. There's some interesting partnerships. I've tried to avoid mentioning any sort of crypto things at the minute.
Oh, he's still pushing NFTs, isn't he?
He's still dropping NFTs as we speak. I have to say his advertising skills have improved a lot since he advertised Castrol. And he had a really interesting, really monotone advert about all the places he's been. I think this is a really hard one. I think he has still got a lot of appeal globally. I think perhaps we underestimate that coming from Europe, and then perhaps we see him as a bit, on the way on that front.
Maybe we kind of park him on the bench for now and come back to him later on once we've discussed a few more candidates.
I will say, I think it depends on what the brand wants from the deal. If you're just looking for a raw exposure, then fine, crack on. Whereas if you were looking to align yourself with an athlete and that brand journey that they go on in their career, then with Ronaldo, it's a downward journey. Whereas if you're looking at somewhere like a young up-and-coming player that I've already mentioned, and there's plenty more, they're on the ascent. You can align your brand with that and go with them on the way, and that, for me, screams more marketability.
What does Cristiano Ronaldo actually stand for in 2024? Does anyone know? I don't know anything about his values whatsoever, other than the fact that he just accumulates Instagram followers and wealth at a rate unlike any other.
Cristiano Ronaldo.
Yeah.
CR7.
I'm going to vouch for Bukayo Saka. He was actually one of those 4 players that I mentioned who ranked above him in our 50 most marketable list last year. I know what I was talking about him earlier being part of the probably most famous meme from Euro 2020, but he's like morphed into a really trusted ambassador. He's a really likable kid. He's got this infectious smile. He's also, he's got a deal with New Balance, which kind of, the fact that he's not actually aligned with one of those Nikes or Adidas's means that he can really front that brand. And he recently appeared in an ad with Shohei Ohtani, Sidney McLaughlin, Coco Gauff. So it's clear that they're kind of positioning him front and centre. And I think what Steve was talking about there in terms of footballers at this tournament who can help brands reach other markets. Arsenal did quite a nice piece of content earlier in the year where it was Saka basically reading out letters from young Nigerian children whose operations he's helped fund through some of his charity work. And if that isn't more marketable than Cristiano Ronaldo's NFTs, then I don't know what is. I think, I think there's a strong argument that Saka can feature in this. There's also done collabs with Burberry,
Nando's.
Yeah, Nando's.
Got his own sauce.
So yeah. I think he's hot property for brands at the moment. There's a strong argument for him being in there.
There certainly is.
Hot sauce property.
Yeah, thank you.
There is a number of others. I think there's going back slightly into Ronaldo's gravitational pull, another big name is Lewandowski, who I believe ranked above him in our 50mm rankings.
I actually have down his score. So he was, the total was out of 100, and Lewandowski was 82.96, which is, he was 22nd in the 50 most marketable list last year, which is very, very impressive when you consider some of the people around him. I do think probably that if we're talking about stars waning and Ronaldo's being a star on the wane, then Lewandowski, who's really kind of, he's tapering off when it comes to his career. It's still, a very big, a very big brand, especially in Eastern Europe, especially in Germany, which are two markets that you really can't ignore, I don't think. He's definitely still kind of the face in that kind of area. Obviously, he plays for a huge club. His wife is a fitness influencer too. So like they're kind of a bit of a power couple in Poland. There's a lot that you can do with him. He's definitely going to come in and he'll still be knocking around. Like he's going to be ITV2 major highlights tournament, B team, that kind of thing for like years to come. I reckon. Like he's a good face for.
I'm sort of anxious to avoid having the marketing equivalent of the Expendables in our team. So I think we might need to let's look at some younger talent. I mean, there's Lamine Yamal. He's an obvious one. He's Spain's youngest ever player, I believe. He made his Barca debut at 16 as well. Is this maybe a tournament too soon for him? What's your take on him?
Line him up now. That's my tip.
I think like at 16, it possibly, I don't know. I think there's no doubt that he's really, really good at football and is going to be really, really good at football for a long time.
It's insight. He's good at football.
Yeah,
that's what you come to the SportsPro podcast for.
Sure, if that's what you're looking for. But I think he's limited in the pool of brands that he can partner with because of his age to an extent. Also, as I said, we know that he's talented, but that's kind of what we know about him at the moment. There's still a lot he has to do to like mature as an individual. People don't know about, as Tom was saying, what Cristiano Ronaldo's values in 2024. We don't really know what Yamal stands for yet. He might not even know what he stands for yet. He's still just a teenager who's taken his homework to a major international football tournament. So I personally feel like it's probably a tournament too soon, but there's no doubt that some brands, well, a lot of brands will be looking at him now and thinking when is the right time to get in, because he looks like a talent who's going to be sort of at the forefront of global football for a very long time.
No, that's fair. In terms of other potential sort of big name forwards, there's Harry Kane, who I believe was in 50mm this year. He was certainly in
slightly lower than Lewandowski last year.
Slightly lower than Lewandowski, but he was in it. I mean, in terms of other baby road shouts from me, there's Artem Dovbyk, who up front for Ukraine. I think because he was top scorer in La Liga this year, I think if he had a good tournament, then that might propel him forward. But as much as I'm sure we all want Ukraine to do well, they have got off to hardly an inauspicious start. So I think he would need a good tournament, and then we could maybe have that conversation. So I might, basically, I've talked myself out of a suggestion, but I'm good at that. Steve, how could you argue against Kylian Mbappe being in this 11?
I can't argue against Mbappe. He's already a global superstar. He's going to be moving to, well, unofficially he's moving to Madrid. We expect that to be announced fairly soon. That's going to elevate to another category.
It's happened, isn't it?
Has it announced?
I don't know.
It
seems so inevitable that it's probably already happened.
It's been happening for so long, I've kind of not realised. Serial winner is known around the world. He also seems to have a vested interest in being this masterful character. He's learned English. As you say, he's been talking about, he's outspoken on political topics, which is always, I say, can be a dangerous game for some people, but I mean, maybe not in France, given the situation there. Trailblazer Jan Sommer, he has his own partners page on his website. He's got some, blue chip sponsors. He was 9th in most marketable. I believe that was the highest.
I think he's been dotting around the top 10 for the last 5 or 6 years. Yeah,
and I am sure he can even sell stuff with a broken nose. So I think it's dead. I don't think you can argue against Mbappe at all.
No, also he's following in the footsteps of cultural icon Dog the Bounty Hunter and selling Oakley sunglasses. So very tough to compete with the dog.
So the only real question mark. So I think Mbappe is a definite. We've sort of Musiala. That's another one.
Thanks for just saying a name, Ed.
You not heard of him?
No, I hadn't. I'd like him more if he was English, but that's just my own preferences. No, I mean like Musiala, like he was part of that part of that Germany team at the last tournament who made a real stand of which there weren't actually that many against the sort of the human rights abuses in Qatar. Obviously, famously featured in that photograph where they all covered their mouths. Another person who is front and center of pretty much every I think it's Adidas he's with, isn't it? Like their big campaigns.
Is it like, sorry, yeah. But that's his only. I think that's his only deal at the moment. So like, his portfolio has lots of potential to grow. And as you say, I feel like there's been quite a conscious effort to push him a little bit more as one of the stars of the tournament, and he definitely lived up to the billing in that first game. So yeah, I feel like there's a pretty strong case for him being featured in this. I feel like the question areas that we have quite a few strong shouts for players that can play out wide. Are we going to abandon their traditional number 9 and go with a fluid front 3?
Do you have a traditional number 9 in mind, Sam?
You've kind of spoken about a few of them, and this guy I would not have mentioned
about an hour ago
before the tournament. We were in the cab over here, and I was trying to figure out how to pronounce his name. But the Hungarian striker Martin Adam, who he went viral at the weekend when he came on, and basically people were making fun of him because he thought basically they didn't think he looks like what a professional football player should look like. And obviously it's really easy for people to poke fun at that on social media. But then he came out and did like a really sweet interview after where he basically said, I was born this way, it's genetics, not much I can do to change it. He was like, usually I laugh at those things, but one or two of them definitely got to me. So I don't know, I kind of feel like there's something for a brand to latch onto there. There's Manscaped, with that beard.
You could sell power tools, like Makita would be a great effort.
Giacomo. I don't know. There's something in there.
Giacomo. Wow. Yeah, he could be the new Freddie Flintoff.
He's actually got that kind of cult hero status. He's probably one of the most cult hero-y of anyone in our team. So the rest are quite polished, clearly at the top of their game. I think cult hero says a lot. Can go a long way with brands.
If we put him in over Cristiano Ronaldo, I'll leave here happy.
I mean, if we're talking about big strikers, it's like when we got rid of Cristiano Ronaldo and brought in Wout Weghorst at United, who could also make this bench if he wanted to.
Are we sacrificing someone for him?
So hang on, we're saying Mbappe's definitely in, right?
Mbappe's
yes,
definitely in. I think it's difficult to argue against Saka as well. So
I'd perhaps just add a bit. You mentioned him already, Harry Kane. If we're talking about boot suppliers that have partnered with one particular, to lead their brand, he's working with Skechers. He's arguably the best centre forward in the world. He's now, previously Premier League, but now he's in Germany. He's, opening up new audiences. So I throw his name in the ring if we wanted to diversify that front line.
If anyone can sell Skechers, they probably deserve the crown as the most marketable athlete in the world. But I just don't know. That feels like a drag more than anything else to me.
That's his. That's all down to his brother, isn't it? His agent, his one and only client.
Let's get Adam in there. Let's do it.
Are we dropping Cristiano Ronaldo for Hungarian striker?
He was never in.
Yeah, he's parked. He's on the bench. He's out.
Okay, so we've got
Kevin De Bruyne is going to sell the Middle Eastern project. So we've got that covered off.
Actually, I think for balance of the team as well, we've got two very pacey wide men that can cut inside, and then we've got the big man up front, when we need to get it launched.
I love it.
So I think tactically it's the right thing.
Would you even drop Ronaldo, not just for Martin Adam, I can't do your pronunciation, but would you also drop him for former BDO darts world champion Martin Adams?
Yes.
Too big.
You seem very, very adamant about dropping Ronaldo. That was all I was saying.
This may age like milk, but Martin Adam is in. We've got a couple of minutes left. Is it worth mentioning the most marketable players? We miss you, Jack. Who haven't made the tournament, whether that's through they weren't selected or injury or anything like that. Is it difficult to look beyond Jack Grealish, basically?
Every time I go to Marks and Spencer, I see him on M&S. I see him advertising Hellman's in Tesco. He's on the football stickers. He's advertising Pepsi. When EA Sports announced the Euro 2024 mode, he was one of the players on the promotional material. I think Jack, from a marketing point of view, people are, it's hard to look past Jack Grealish.
The kind of one that people are even forgetting as a footballer is Paul Pogba. I mean, I know is he banned currently?
He topped our list, didn't he?
He was top of the 50 most marketable list for and was probably one of the strongest. What?
Don't tell people that.
No, it was probably one of the strongest shouts at the time. He was riding high. He was like, I think they just won the World Cup, or they were about to win the World Cup. He just joined United. It was literally he was kind of Jude Bellingham. What people were willing Jude Bellingham to be, like that central midfielder who could pretty much do everything. It was another one who'd have probably been flogging Predator boots had he been not banned and not fallen off the wagon. But it's incredible really that Pogba is kind of fallen out of this conversation completely for someone who's not even that old. But yeah, I do feel like his time has passed. Another one who unfortunately, I mean, this is more injury than anything else, is Frenkie de Jong. Would have been lovely to just slot into that midfield. Could have definitely bumped out Pedri for him, but yeah, that's more of a personal preference than anything else.
I think obviously because the team didn't qualify, Erling Haaland not being there is another consideration. And then I think player who was not selected because of form, I think Marcus Rashford is another obvious one. Yeah, they definitely missed from that point of view.
There is still much like Gareth Southgate, that 11 looks pretty locked in, with the exception of, do we want to try and make room for Trent, or are we happy leaving him on the bench?
No, we'll leave that to Gareth for next game.
Fine. All right. So, gents, as far as I'm aware, that is the 11 locked in. We have, as our manager, Steve, I'll let you do the pronunciation again.
Michael Probiec.
Thank you. In goal, we have Jan Sommer. Our defence is Joshua Kimmich, Virgil van Dijk, Antonio Rudiger, and Alexander Zinchenko. We have a midfield of Jude Bellingham, Pedri, and Kevin De Bruyne. And up front, we have Bukayo Saka, Kylian Mbappe, and Martin Adam. The hill we will die on, and why we probably won't get asked back here for the World Cup in 2 years.
Lovely stuff.
Thank you all for listening. We really appreciate it. But yeah, thank you, everyone. Cheers.
Mm-hmm.